The sea writhed like a living thing along the ragged shores of Ireland's Hook Peninsula, and Loftus Hall sat atop the cliff like a brooding sentinel. Built on the bones of an older structure known as Redmond Hall, the mansion had long stared into the sea, as though waiting for something to come crawling out of it. It was the year 1765, and Loftus Hall, grand but aging, belonged to Charles Tottenham, a man of rigid discipline and noble duty. His first wife, the Honorable Anne Loftus, had died years earlier, leaving behind 6 children. Most had grown and moved on, but his daughter Anne Tottenham, still unmarried, remained at Loftus Hall with him. Charles had since remarried to Jane Cliff, his cousin. Anne, slender and pale, had grown up in the long, wind-battered corridors of Loftus Hall. Her footsteps echoed off stone, and the sea wind crept through cracks in the walls. She knew the house's creaks like the back of her hand. She also knew when something in it had changed. That change came on a night when the sky split open. A violent storm clawed across the Hook Peninsula, dragging behind it a chorus of waves and wind that screamed against the walls of the mansion. Thunder rolled so deep it seemed to shake the foundation of the house. As the family settled in the drawing room, cloaked in candlelight and distant prayers, a knock rang out against the front doors. It was not frantic, not panicked, but deliberate. Charles, startled, ordered the butler to open the door. When it did, a figure stood in the rain, tall, composed, with his face obscured by the hood of a dark cloak. His voice, when he spoke, was calm. "I was shipwrecked," he said. "May I find shelter from the storm?" To turn away a stranger in such weather would be unthinkable. He was welcomed inside. The moment the man stepped across the threshold, the candles trembled. No one noticed. The stranger gave no name, yet spoke with the confidence of nobility. His manners were impeccable, his posture regal, and his gaze unwavering. Anne, drawn like a moth to a flame, could not keep her eyes from him. Her heart quickened, not just with girlish infatuation, but with something unnameable, something deeper. He lingered in the home for days, claiming the storm had ruined the roads and that his ship had sunk beyond retrieval. No inquiries were made, and he offered no letters of introduction. Still, Charles tolerated his presence. Jane, ever suspicious, said little but watched him closely. Anne, however, was enchanted. They walked the gardens when the storm cleared. They spoke in low tones in the corners of the drawing room. The servants whispered about the change in her, how she had become quieter, more distant, and paler still. One maid claimed she heard Anne speaking to someone in her room at night, but when the door was opened, it was empty. Each evening, the family and their guest would sit for cards in the drawing room. It was during one such game that everything changed. The drawing room was heavy with silence, broken only by the crackle of the fire and the soft shuffle of cards. Anne sat beside the stranger, eyes never straying from his hands. Jane sat stiffly across from them, her knuckles white as she held her hand. Outside, the wind howled, though no storm had been forecasted. During a hand, Anne dropped a card. As she bent beneath the table to retrieve it, the fire flickered violently, then dimmed. In the half-shadow, she saw the feet of the man beside her. They were not feet at all. They were hooves, cloven and black, steaming faintly despite the cold. She screamed, the sound slicing through the room like shattered glass. The stranger rose calmly, tipped his head to Anne, and without a word, launched upward, straight through the ceiling in a burst of fire and smoke. Plaster rained from the rafters. Wood cracked and burned. And just as quickly as he had come, he was gone. What was left behind was a hole in the ceiling, blackened and splintered, a wound the house would never heal. And Anne, she was never the same. After that night, Anne was confined to her chambers in the upper wing of the house. Her cries echoed through the halls, especially at dusk, when the shadows grew longer. She no longer recognized her father. She refused to eat. She scratched symbols into the wooden frame of her bedpost with broken nails. Servants claimed she would stand motionless at the window for hours, whispering to the sea. The room where the card game had taken place was locked and sealed. Every attempt to repair the hole in the ceiling failed. The patchwork would collapse, or the boards would rot within days. Eventually, they left it alone. When a local priest was brought to the home to bless the halls, he left without a word after a single night. His hands trembled, and his hair had gone white at the edges. By the time Anne died, she was but a shell. Her once bright eyes were dull, her body frail and twisted by madness. She died in the tapestry room, surrounded by nothing and no one. Some say her body was placed in a sitting position, as she had spent so many hours staring out the window. Others whisper that her soul never left the chair. Loftus Hall grew quiet after Anne's death. Too quiet. Footsteps echoed in empty corridors. Doors slammed in rooms long sealed. The sound of weeping would drift from the tapestry room at night, rising and falling like the tide. The bricked-over doorway to Anne's chamber grew cold as ice. No matter the season, the drawing room remained locked, but those who passed it said they felt as though they were being watched. One maid quit after claiming to see a face in the scorched ceiling. Visitors, rare as they were, reported sudden illness upon entering the home. Children cried near the stairwell for no reason. Even animals refused to cross the threshold. Horses balked, dogs howled and backed away. Anne's spirit, many believed, was not at rest. But some said something else had been left behind. Not the girl, the guest. Desperate, Charles sought help from the church. Several priests came, and most left in silence. One man, Father Thomas Broaders, conducted a full exorcism, candles lit, Latin chanted, water blessed and sprinkled across the walls. The house shuddered as if it were alive. He later died under mysterious circumstances. His tombstone in nearby Hortown bears a chilling line. He did good and prayed for all, and banished the devil from Loftus Hall. But did he? Because the house remained wrong. In the decades that followed, new families occupied Loftus Hall, but none stayed long. Stories persisted. Tourists claimed to see a girl in white, hands pressed to the upper windows. Paranormal investigators picked up screams, sobs, and whispered names. No room was without a story. Lights flickered in rooms with no electricity. Cold spots bloomed in summer air. Cards were found scattered on the floor of the drawing room when no one had entered it in months. And always, there was that feeling of being watched, of not being alone. The tapestry room, where Anne spent her final days, became the epicenter of the haunting. Those brave enough to sleep there rarely made it till dawn. One man awoke to find the sheets pulled taut across his body, his limbs pinned by invisible hands. Another claimed to see a woman sitting silently in the chair by the window, her face sunken, her eyes black. She did not move, she only stared. Guests reported waking to the sound of fingernails scraping wood. Some found marks on the walls. Others fled in the night, refusing to speak of what they'd seen. To this day, the room is said to be the coldest in the house. Thermometers drop inexplicably when brought inside. Shadows move across the floor without source. And the chair by the window is said to creak when no one sits in it, as though Anne still waits.